right, so today I have the honor of having Mr. Kyle Roof with us. He needs no introduction. I would rather ask Kyle, what are you up to these days?
Same old, same old. We live in paradise here in Chiang Mai, and yeah, taking it one day at a time. It's life is good. Things are good.
You've been in the SEO field for quite some time. What's been one of the biggest turning moments for your SEO career?
So I started like in 2012 or so, and I remember in 2012 people were like, "Oh, man, remember the good old days? They were 2010. It was so easy back then." And then in 2014, when people would be like, "Man, remember those good old days in 2012 when things were so easy? It was so easy back then." And then in 2018, I remember back in 2014 when it was just so easy back then. And everyone gets nostalgic for the past in SEO and how easy it was, but at the time they always lament about how hard it is. And so really the turning moment for me was the mindset that nothing really changes. It all stays about the same. The core part of the algorithm has remained the same since I've been looking at it and testing things and trying things out. And what happens is user preference changes. The landscape changes a little bit. Maybe a particular technique that you knew might not be as effective as it used to. And that's where you have to adapt. But really at the end of the day, it's all about the same. And a turning point for me was having that mindset, realizing that we're going to get through it. We can figure it out. We can optimize. We're going to be fine. It's about the same as it was before. And it's always been hard. It never was. There never were these days where it was super easy. It's always been a challenge. You have to figure it out. And then when we do, and then we move on. And so that to me was a real turning point in my career.
Starting from last year's HCU and this year's March core update and all the updates that are coming regularly, we've seen a lot of affiliate SEOs at shop. Have you seen that trend in agency side as well?
So a lot of agencies that service affiliates or affiliate type sites have been hit because affiliates buy a disproportionate amount of services. They buy a disproportionate amount of links and content, tool usage, and maybe consulting with agencies. And so with a lot of them leaving the market, I think 2024 has been difficult for service providers. Now, the thing is, like all the techniques that they were using before still work. I know many affiliate sites that have gone up after those, like the HCU and the March Core were the two big ones, right? After those two, and they're doing fine. They're doing just fine. The issue with affiliates, I think, honestly, is that they're doorway pages. And I got this from Kazra Dash, and I think he's right. Google's always had doorway pages on the no-no list. They don't like them. You're essentially setting yourself as a middleman, an unnecessary middleman. And so if I were getting into affiliate today, I still think there's a lot of money to be made there. I still think it can be very profitable. I would just make sure that my site doesn't look like a doorway page to a bot. That's what I would be working on. That's the problem that I would try to solve. But if you can crack that nut and you feel good about what you're doing, the rest of it's still the same. All the techniques and all the things you did to optimize before will still work.
So what suggestion would you give to agency owners for 2025? What other services, add-on services, or new services they could add to safeguard their business and also grow their business in 2025?
So I was like, I think according to like the Department of Labor and whatever, blah, blah, blah stats in the US,
Yeah.
and they were saying that they're predicting there's going to be something like 4 million new businesses, startups in the
Wow.
US in 2025. And apparently that's near record numbers. And so they're anticipating massive growth in small business. So I would have a small business package. I would have a starter package for somebody that like, when we've started our business, now what? Like what do we need to do from here to kind of get ourselves in the game? And now a lot of these, because they're startups and a lot of them are going to be like mom and pops, they aren't going to be the largest budget clients. I know everybody wants like, oh, I like the $5,000 a month client, I like the 10,000. We all would. But I think there's going to be an opportunity to service this type of new business. And even though it's a lower price point, I think it'd be very profitable. And a lot of people have gotten out of the game. So when those affiliates we talked about left, a lot of agency people left, or a lot of people that were doing kind of side hustle work are gone. And so if you're available and you have packages that can service these types of clients, I think you can have an awesome year.
What's your take about digital PR? Is it worth the cost spending that amount of money on those kind of backlinks?
Let me answer your question with a question. What is digital PR? What is it? I don't even know.
Basically, people spending 6 to 7 or even 10 grand with the hopes of acquiring media like sites like Huffington Post or Forbes or The Sun, getting links from those kind of sites.
Link building that's focused on news outlet sites, right?
Yeah, primarily.
I'm sure it's fine.
Yes,
It's to me, it just sounds like backlink building. And I think it was just like people don't like that term, and so they use digital PR and they feel better about themselves. It's like people that say like, "Oh, we don't do backlinks; we do content publishing on websites." It's like, I think that's the same thing. So I think yeah, it's gonna work because links still work, and links are still gonna work in 2025. So yeah, go for it. Now I know a lot of digital PR is very expensive, and so I think you just have to balance budget more than anything if it's worth your time, because maybe you could spread that money out to links that aren't quite as good, but you can get maybe more of them, or maybe get more niche specific than just an outlet. So that's what I would consider.
would digital PR be on top of your link building strategy?
I don't know if it's like my number one go to, because I don't know that it needs to be all that fancy, but it would definitely be part of it. And especially if I had a client with a higher budget, then sure, I would do it then.
Got it. What's your opinion about 301 link building for building backlinks?
So in a perfect world, the idea on 301s is that you have a company and your company bought another company. And then because you acquired that asset, now you're pointing their website. When people are like, oh, can I 301.7 domains to my domain? You have to ask yourself, is it plausible that your company just bought 7 companies?
Yeah.
It's not. And so that's where the risk factor comes in. It doesn't make any sense that you would be doing that. Also, really ideally when you do 301s is that you want to link one to one. Again, you bought a complementary company, they should have the same types of pages that you do. You
Yeah.
basically should have very similar sites, so it should be very easy to do one-to-one redirects. And if you can't do that, then I don't think that's a domain you really want to pick up, because you're probably just going to redirect all to the homepage and you'll end up with soft 404s. So it's effective, it does work. I would just be very careful once you get into the implausible zone of how many companies your company happened to acquire this month.
Let's say you had a budget of just $1,000 per month, either for your own site or for one of your clients. How would you spend that on backlinks? Would you go for a mix of niche edits, guest posts, PBNs, or will you just stick with guest posts? Or yeah, what will be your strategy like?
I think if you got that budget, um, where's the most bang for your buck? Probably in the niche edits, I would guess. Is probably where the most cost effective way to do it. And what I like about niche edits too is that you're getting on pages where you can see what the traffic is already. You
Yeah.
don't have to worry about, is this page going to rank for things? Is it going to get traffic? Because ultimately, I really do like traffic on the pages where I'm getting links. I want the page to be active, not just buried on a website somewhere. So maybe I'd lean towards the niche edits.
Do you think backlinks will still be a crucial ranking factor by the end of 2025?
It's still a core part of the algorithm, and I think it'll continue to be right there. I don't think they can change that it too much.
Do you think backlinks are going to be a ranking factor to see your sites pop up in ChatGPT and other AI results?
That's a great question. I don't know. It does seem like maybe they're using something a little bit different than like just looking at their results and then pulling out. So, but I don't think anybody's identified exactly what they're using. I'm not sure if backlinks are part of that or not.
Do you think agencies should already start capitalizing or offering AI search results SEO or search GPT SEO?
If they're offering a package, I would be a little, I'd be, I don't know, I'd be hesitant to buy that package. I'd like to see a case study. I'd like to see a case study on those results first.
Any link building strategy that you think is still underutilized?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of opportunities in your community to get links. You can get a lot of local links inexpensively just by participating in your community. By doing, participating in local events, and then you can get those events on calendars in the community. You can get them on blog posts that, the local chapter of like the Chamber of Commerce type sites are doing. I think there's a lot that you could do that would just take a little bit of legwork that can give you very effective links from .orgs, charities, organizations, stuff like that within your community. And those are very strong links. And I think a lot of people ignore that. So I'd go after those types of links because there's a lot of opportunity.
You're known for SEO testings. What's your advice for those who want to do testings with regards to link building or backlinks? What kind of environment or what kind of precautions or various measures they should take for accurate or good quality testings with
So
backlinks?
what I would do is I'd buy a domain that's recently expired, and then I'd put it back up as it was.
Okay.
So you can actually start to get some traffic. So you get kind of a realish environment. And I would play with that site and I would send links to it and just try the techniques that you're thinking about doing, but do it on that site first before you do it on anything you really care about. I would also make sure you've got a separate hosting account and a separate search console. And just in case you do something and it goes horribly, tragically wrong, you've isolated that site. It's away from anything else that you care about. But that's what I would do if I were going to play with link building techniques.
I think last year you did a small experiment with no follow backlinks, right? What kind of environment did you create to do that test?
So that was done with Chris from Linkify, and they had test sites that they had already set up and they felt comfortable pointing links to. So I think they have sites actually for that purpose, so that they can test their link building and learn and explore. And so they had already had that set up, and with that, I was kind of more overseeing and directing the test, and they were doing the physical labor on it.
What's the most amount of money you spend on a backlink?
I don't know. I'm cheap. I'm, I'm really cheap. I'd rather buy content sometimes than a backlink. I imagine the most probably spend is around $1,000 for like a placement in like a digital PR type thing to get placement into something nice.
Got it. Which lead gen or client acquisition strategy has worked best for your agency?
It takes about a year and a half for it to get rolling consistently, but getting yourself on podcasts like this and YouTube shows and speaking engagements has turned into the single most successful channel that we have. But for the leads to consistently come in, you really have to stick at it for about a year to 18 months, I'd say. And then you'll get leads along the way. But once you have that back catalog of all of that work, there about a year's worth of work, let's say, or maybe a little more, that's when the leads start to consistently hit for you.
Do you think people can build a seven-figure agency without a personal brand?
You can. I've seen it. I wouldn't do it though. People buy from people,
Yeah.
and ultimately they want to see who they're buying from. But more than that, your agency needs a point of view. Like, why are people coming to you? Because
Yeah.
if you don't have a point of view, you're just an agency, and then you're probably negotiating on price. It's just price point. You need something else. You need something that people are going to identify that this is what your agency does. And then the messenger of that agent, of that tagline, or of that philosophy, or of that point of view is your personal brand or the brand. It doesn't have to be you necessarily. You could
Mm.
own the company, but have someone else be the face of the company. That's totally fine. But that's what I think you need, is that a recognition that this person is associated with this agency, and this agency does whatever, like whatever their specialty is, or however they want to frame it.
You mentioned that you've been doing a lot of podcasts and speaking engagements, going to various conferences, and that has helped build your brand, ultimately build your agency. Did you start off by doing cold outreach to these podcast hosts and conferences as well? Hey, I would like to be a speaker or a guest on your podcast.
I got on stage first in 2015. And as soon as I got on stage and did a presentation, I was able to say, like, oh, I just spoke at this conference. And that opened up a ton of other conferences, and that opened up a lot of speaking engagements from there. And so you do cold outreach, but once you've got that, then the ball really will start rolling for you. So you got to do one, or you got to get on one, and then you can point to that one, and then more people will let you on.
How has paid ads worked for your agency?
That's one of the channels we use, but like 50% of all of our leads probably come from me speaking, and then all the other channels account for the other 50%. And then it ebbs and flows as you go through the channels, but paid ads is definitely part of the strategy.
What's your best tip for those who are planning to sell their agency in the next 1 or 2 years?
You really need to remove yourself from the processes, the day-to-day stuff, and as much as you can. Because the one big thing that the person buying your agency is going to be worried about is, if you're gone, it is the whole thing collapse. Like, are
Mm.
you the single most important piece to this whole puzzle? So you want to remove yourself, especially if you can, from the sales. You need to get out of sales,
Mm.
and you have to show that you have a consistent sales funnel, and it works without you. So you could be the face of the company. It's okay, because if when they buy your company, they're going to use your face for the next 2 or 3 years. That'll be part of the deal. But you could have that spokesperson, and that can be you, and that's okay. But when somebody calls and says, hey, I'd like to talk about your services, you're not answering that call, and you're never answering that call, and you're never involved in that process. And then when they onboard, you're not the one onboarding them,
Mm.
and then when they in their strategy calls, you're not the one on that strategy call. And as much of
Yeah.
yourself as you can take out of all of that, the higher likelihood you have of selling your agency.
For people who are introvert or are scared or just not comfortable, maybe because of language barriers coming on podcasts or on conferences, but their service is really good. They are good with what they offer. How can they build trust?
Well, first of all, you think I'm an extrovert, but my therapist says I'm an introvert, and this is a coping mechanism that that I use to survive. Because I hate getting on stage. Public speaking terrifies me. I get butterflies. I got butterflies before this call. It stresses me out. And like you get that one moment of like fight or flight, and you think about like, can I just cancel this? Like that runs through my head every time. So like don't think that if you feel nervous that you can't do it, or like nobody else feels. Everyone feels
Yeah.
nerves. Everyone feels nerves. Like, and before I get on stage, I just hate myself. Like, I'm always like, what am I doing? Well, I could be anywhere else in the world, but here, right now, and I could be enjoying I got a cocktail at the bar instead. It's just everyone gets that, so you can. It's a learned skill. Yeah, I don't think it's. I think some people are obviously naturally inclined towards something, but it's a learned skill, and everybody gets nervous, and you can get past that. So that's doable. But beyond that, if you really don't want to do stuff like that, I think you need to establish case studies. You have to show your work. You have to show that you did something and it was effective, and you have to do it in a way that a person looking at that can put themselves into, like, I have that type of business, or I
Yeah.
have that type of problem, or I have those types of goals, and so you put it in. So that means you're going to have enough case studies to fit all of the personas, of the people that you want to work with, and all of your ICPs. So you have to identify who your ideal clients are, and then make sure you've got a case study for each one of those is probably what you need to do to establish trust.
Case studies is definitely a solid way to build more trust. What's your favorite business related book so far?
The Algebra of Happiness by Scott Galloway, hands down.
Really?
Love it. Yep. The book explores how you can kind of grapple with the idea of becoming a high income earner and also still be happy and living a fulfilled life. And I highly recommend it.
Hey, Kyle, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate that. What's the best way for our listeners to stay updated with all your testings and various other news that you keep releasing?
Yeah. So you can go to my software, which is pageoptimizer.pro. We post updates there and blogs and stuff like that about what we're doing. img.courses is where I've got courses. Those are the two best spots. You can find me there.
Cool. Thank you so much, Kyle. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Great time.